Good day, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to your English Studies class today. I am Mr. Oladile. We'll be looking at grammar as an aspect of English. And under this aspect, our topic is transitive and intransitive verbs. Transitive and intransitive verbs. Our Bible reference is taken from the book of Genesis, chapter 26, verse 12, which says, Isaac planted crops that year. The Bible verse is good for illustration, the illustration of transitive verbs. The sentence has a subject, a verb, and their object. So the action planted is an intransitive verb which is carried over to the receiver, the object crops. So this is an example of a transitive verb. Let's proceed. Our instructional objectives are: by the end of the lesson, students should be able to briefly describe the concept verb. They should be able to define transitive and intransitive verbs. Students should be able to identify transitive and intransitive verbs. And finally, they should be able to use transitive and intransitive verbs appropriately. By way of introduction, a verb is a word or group of words that denotes or shows an action or a state of being. The action can be physical or mental. Verbs are classified mostly based on the functions they are created to perform in sentences. So, English verbs have at least 4 classifications: main or auxiliary, finite and non-finite, regular and irregular, and lastly, transitive and intransitive verbs, which we are looking at today. Transitive verbs. What is a transitive verb? A transitive verb is a verb which carries over the action of its subject to its object. In another way, we can say a transitive verb transfers the action of its subject to its object. So the action of the verb is received by a noun called the object. Examples include: the boy killed a goat. Killed is a transitive verb because the action is transferred to a noun which serves as the object and the receiver of the action. Example 2 says, the man built a house. Built is a transitive verb because it transfers the action to the object, a house. And finally, my father bought my mother Lexus 300. Bought is a transitive verb here as it transfers its action to the object, Lexus 300. Good. Let's look at intransitive verbs. What is an intransitive verb? An intransitive verb is a verb of which its action remains with its subject. So in another way, we can say the verb or the action of an intransitive verb is not transferred to any object. In most cases, intransitive verbs don't even have any object. So it does not carry its action over to any object. The subject performs and receives the action at the same time. Examples below will help us. Kofi Annan died last year. Kofi Annan performed the action and also suffered the action. 2. The baby sleeps soundly. It is the baby that is performing the action, and it is it that's still receiving the action. And finally, we have the bird sings. The bird is performing an action here, and it is receiving that action. So we can conclude by saying that the actions of transitive verbs go back to the performers of the actions. Let's look at the differences we have between transitive and intransitive verbs. Transitive verbs take objects, while intransitive verbs don't. For illustration, James broke the bottle. Broke is a transitive verb here, versus the lady sang sonorously. Sang here is an intransitive verb. So you can see that there is no any object in the lady sang sonorously, which happens to be an intransitive verb. Another difference is that all transitive verbs can be changed from the active verbs to the passive verbs, whereas the majority of intransitive verbs cannot be changed from the active to the passive. Let's check the following examples for illustration. James broke the bottle, an active sentence or an active voice, and the bottle was broken by James. That's a passive voice. Both of them are transitive verbs. So the action broke and was broken are intransitive. They are both transitive verbs. But let's check the next example. The lady sang sonorously. The lady sang sonorously is an active sentence and with an intransitive verb. It can be changed to the passive. Therefore, there is no passive equivalence to the example. Here comes the end of our lesson today. What we have been trying to say here is that transitive verbs are those verbs that take objects, and as such they transfer the action of their subject to the objects, while intransitive verbs are those verbs that don't transfer their actions or carry over their actions to any object. The actions of intransitive verbs stay with the subject. So those are the disparities that we have between transitive and intransitive verbs. So we are to attempt this evaluation question. We are to write transitive verb in the bracket if the underlying verb in a sentence is a transitive verb, and we are to write intransitive verb if the underlying verb is an intransitive verb. So when we get to B, we are to create 3 sentences of our own for each of the transitive and intransitive verbs. So we're going to create 6 sentences in all. Submit the assignment to michaeloladile84@gmail.com on or before Friday, 4th September 2020. Good. Thank you all as we do our assignments and we submit appropriately. Have a nice day.